Hi folks, welcome to your Gersnet immediate post-match reaction pod, coming to you in association with Forest Precision Engineering. My name's Alec Anderson and I'm speaking to you shortly after Rangers 2-0 win in Dingwall today. We beat Ross County by 2-0 in today's lunchtime kick-off in the SPFL Premiership. A win that means you can say and I can say we are top of the league. Say we are top of the league, or rather say we were top of the league, because a slight technical issue, I really need chips, means that this is probably not going to go out. This video won't be aired until well after 5 o'clock, and by that point, of course, everybody else will have played. And Celtic, as people have been saying around me in the stands at Ibrox, how come Celtic can always just put these teams away? They never stop. They blow away teams like Ross County, St Johnstone. We tend to struggle against them. And, you know, there was obviously a real likelihood that Celtic will go 6 points clear next week if they win the Old Firm game. So just take consolation in the fact that we don't make that situation any worse today. In fact, we started the day mid-table, level on points with Ross County, just ahead of them on goal difference. So we've got to taste briefly what it's like for big teams that go top of the league, and we've really consolidated our top 6 place for this season. So a good day's work all round. Yes, a pretty weird fixture it was for all sorts of reasons, primarily because it's sandwiched between two utterly gargantuan Champions League playoff ties against PSV Eindhoven. Even looking at the domestic side of things, and 3 points is 3 points, doesn't matter who you get it against apparently. But next Sunday, massive tone-setting first Old Firm game of the season coming up at Ibrox. So we're looking at this game today with as much emphasis on injuries. Can players get through it without coming a cropper? Can people build up their fitness that they maybe haven't got to yet as they've just arrived at Rangers? And suspensions, you don't want anybody ruled out ahead of next Sunday. Really kind of disrespectful to Ross County in many ways, but it's something that can actually be helped. I put a tweet out this morning saying how basically my head was still kind of buzzing from Tuesday night. I mean, the game that we actually played, that's in the bank, the 2 weeks draw with PSV Eindhoven, that second goal we scored, I had the old rush of blood to the head. I had to sit down mid-celebration so that I didn't actually faint. Now that's nothing, surprise, to do with my fatness or my age. I got that in my teens and my early 20s when I was particularly feral. About any Rangers goal would send me absolutely berserk. Even then it got too much. I think it's something to do with, I used to be a redhead, believe it or not. It's my kind of ginger thing. But I'm still kind of recovering from that game the other night. It's kind of ringing in my ears, so to speak. And we're going real kind of domestic duty, almost a grind. We've had a lot of problems at Dingwall over the years. We've had a few games where we've banged in 4 goals and come away with absolutely no damage done. But it was almost like it was some kind of exercise in just accumulating points, a kind of medical, almost like kind of a training session with peril or something like that. We're looking almost at the games coming afterwards and what it would mean about them more than we're concentrating on what happened in Dingwall today, and that's always really dangerous. So well done, Rangers, for coming through this, getting your first away clean sheet of the season domestically, getting your first win, your first goals actually away from home domestically this season, and ensuring that there's no kind of lingering feeling particularly amongst the new kind of flotilla of players that have arrived, that away games are always necessarily difficult for Rangers. I know what you're thinking, same as myself. You and I, the Rangers support in general, we view an easy game, the kind of unstressful game we're looking for today to keep as much in the tank for Wednesday as possible, as being Rangers 3-0 up in half an hour and maybe add another couple just after the break. So we're kind of 5-0 up and we can start making substitutions before the hour mark. Doesn't work like that, but I think in reality, at this level of football, the way Rangers have done it today is probably as close as you're going to get on most occasions, in that Ross County started the game quite well. So they've come at us, they've given it a good 20 minutes or so, and then just when they think there's a wee chance here, right at the very halfway point of the first half, bang, bang, we've hit them with 2 goals, and that's just knocked the wind right out of their sails, and they've found it really difficult to get back into the game. We're obviously being hypercritical of Rangers. We're really analysing Rangers far more than we're worrying about Ross County or whatever like that, but no, I think we put this one to bed quite calmly today, quite easily, and it was a good solid win for a team, as I say, that is still coming together. We were looking at that team sheet like we've never looked at many team sheets before. I wanted Todd Cantwell rested. He ran himself into the ground against PSV at Ibrox. We're going to need him to run himself into the ground against PSV in Eindhoven. So I was thinking he might not start today, but of course he didn't start at Rugby Park, did he? He didn't start at Robbie Park on day one of the SPFL Premiership season, and we couldn't get ourselves going after we got off to a terrible start in that game, even bringing Todd on later on in that game as a sub. It was too late to retrieve the situation. We weren't going to make the same mistake twice. I thought him and Raskin, who was a brilliant base built for them in midfield by a kind of low-lying John Lundstrom. He's sitting just in front of the defence today, John Lundstrom. I'm really glad that Ryan Jack was rested. We're all expecting that. You don't think Ryan Jack's going to start 2 games in a trot at the best of times, but particularly when we're going to need him in Europe. And Lonnie came in today, and I thought he was actually excellent. I thought he did really well, John Lundstrom. He's always mobile, always pretty physical, but his accuracy today, it was, sometimes his distribution of the ball was a bit wanting. Sometimes he goes a bit missing. A couple of pre-season friendlies, he just looked like he wanted away from Rangers altogether, but he was really at it today. And as I say, Cantwell and Raskin, not at their best, almost understandable. They've probably got their eyes and their lungs on these 2 big European games and Celtic next week, but we freshened it up front, and that's where the real changes were. Seema started the game the other night, scored that cracking goal. He was rested. Danilo did not start. Dessers did. He was not a change, and I know what Dessers, I've been talking about it, repeating what Dessers himself has been saying about his fitness not being 100% yet, his match fitness not right there yet, because he was out injured at the end of last season. But I thought maybe this was one game that he could be rested in before he went and tried to do his bit again in Eindhoven. But no, the manager preferred him to Danilo, and I don't want to start saying, Danilo's kind of in the bad books, or he's been written off in any way. The guy, he's South America. I know he's basically played in Europe for most of his career, but particularly South American, settling down in Scotland, it's going to be a big thing. He's still really early at his Ibrox career. It's just that point-blank miss he had against Servette in the previous round in the Champions League qualifiers, and then on Tuesday night, right in the dying minutes against PSV Eindhoven, could have won us the game. It wasn't as bad a miss, but it was a real chance for a proper striker, a guy who wants to be our number 9. So slightly concerned. He came on later on in the game today, but he's slightly concerned that he's not getting the start, not maybe turning into the star man that we want him to be just yet anyway. The other bit I said on the preview pod last night that was on with Rob, I said there's no way he's going to play Tom Lawrence and Kemar Roof from the start tomorrow, Michael Beale, is he? And I was half right anyway. That's a half more than I'm usually right, because Kemar Roof started, and there's only one thing more certain than the fact that Kemar Roof will be injured, and it's that Kemar Roof, when he does start, he will score a goal. 9 minutes into the game today, he put a world-class ball from the left. He's going to play out in the left. It's Dessers through the middle, and Lammers is doing that thing. He's out in the right. Sam Lammers, he comes back in. He's going to out in the right-hand side, or he's drifting between the midfield and the strikers. Roof just puts an absolute world-class peach of a ball onto the head of Dessers at the far post about 9 minutes into the game today. Dessers misses that. That's an inexcusable one, quite a tight angle, but he has another chance later, shortly afterwards, which he misses, which wasn't so excusable. Didn't have a great game today, Dessers, at all. Sam Lammers, he was, started off quite reasonable, putting himself about, looking technically good and making a bit of a contribution, but he died a death towards the end of the first half and into the second half, and had to be subbed before the hour. And just when it looked, as I say, that Ross County were maybe going to be more of a threat than usual, and they were starting to realise all those fears we had. I don't want to build up the context too much here. I know you want to get into the details of the game, particularly details of the 2 cracking goals, but I have to say it. I've not been to Dingwall. I've not been to Victoria Park since the days when it still had terracing. I've not been there since it actually completely seated the place. And within living memory, all too recently for somebody of my age, it's a non-league ground. When I'm watching Rangers playing there on the telly, and it's only really Rangers that I'm watching them, but if I watch a live game on television at Dingwall, because they've got those 4 stands, it's a bijou ground, it's a lovely ground, but it's quite small. And then you've got this production line of kind of Cyclops type gargantuans, these absolute units that Ross County are always getting on the payroll. I think when you combine the 2 factors, there's a kind of foreshortening thing goes on psychologically anyway, where it looks like the guys are giants, they're too big for the stadium. It's like you've been playing Subbuteo, then you decide to get an actual ball, you just step onto the Subbuteo pitch yourself and start kicking it about. So if you're a bit of a worrier the way I am, every time we're trying to attack the Ross County box for years now, I've just thought, how are you going to get past that? That just looks like, they're just filling that box. There's no any gaps there at all. And conversely, when they're attacking our box, particularly if they're putting a set piece in, you're just thinking they just need one of them to get a contact on it, and it's going to go in. So you've got that kind of worry going on, and I'm remembering particularly, not last season, but the season before, that game where it was just before an Old Firm game, a crucial Old Firm game, a first Old Firm game for Giovanni van Bronckhorst. It was January 2022, that would be, remember, it's a Saturday afternoon lunchtime kick-off. Was it Diallo's debut? He scored in his debut. We're 3-2 up, deep into injury time. And then we have this absolute calamity at a corner where Alan McGregor he was having trouble holding basic shots all day that day. No way commanding that box that looks so scarily packed, as I say, over the years with these huge Ross County players. I think it's the all dark blue strip as well, makes it look particularly bad. And Borna Barisic had an absolute nightmare letting his man go, not following. I think it was Jordan White, as it would probably have been, as it usually is, following in for the rebound that day and equalising. Borna totally caught in his heels, all at sea, and then we followed that up with a loss at Parkhead. We get beat 3-0 at Parkhead in the following game, which was a crucial first Old Firm derby for Giovanni van Bronckhorst as Rangers manager. So I had all that going through my head today. As I say, I'm a worrier. And when you look at, okay, Jordan White, he nearly got a goal at the start of the second half. It was a bad chance for us to give him, a bad miss on his part. And Seema, who did okay when he came on offensively, but was brilliant. It was a brilliant defensive interception at the back post late on in the game to clear one. When you've got all that going on in your mind, it's actually, we defended really well. And it was Jack Butland. Jack Butland's a complete difference. I know I keep going on about this, and I'm not trying to disrespect Al McGregor, who's my all-time favourite Rangers goalkeeper. It just is. And it basically got us to a European final that season. That I'm talking about. The second European final that he's got us to, or helped us get to, in his immense Rangers career. I don't mean it's any disrespect to Alan, but Jack Butland just commands his box. He just comes out and picks the balls out of the air. And I can feel the fear of these Ross County defenders leaving me. Same with John Lundstrom. That's the other thing John Lundstrom provides. He came on, again, we only played Ross County once last season at Dingwall because they ended up in the bottom half of the table just fighting relegation. Remember, it was running the festive period, kind of December, January time, and he came in and he started between the two centre halves. He's a unit as well, John Lundstrom. He's a big guy, and he's going in that box as well to defend and to attack. Butland's commanding, and you've got Connor Golson, who's coming back onto an epic world-class game. Coming back from long-term injury. Another reason I thought maybe him or Suter, because they're coming back for long-term injuries, would perhaps be rested today, but no. They're just doing that thing that like Connor Golson did for the greater part of his Rangers career so far. I'm playing, end of. And John Suter's in there as well, just looking totally Alan McLaren. He's getting interviewed after the game. He's got the big rosy cheeks and all that. And he's just absolutely loving it. Bringing the ball out because he's a bit silky as well. He looks like a big farmer though. And so he looks every bit as agricultural when it comes to defending that box. There's no worries. Suddenly there's no worries. And Borna Barisic was absolutely fantastic. He was immense today. It did get out, somebody got past him a couple of times, but he then tracked them down straight away. There's none of that nervousness there. Borna's one of the guys that suffers worst, a bit like Tav, whenever we have a bad result, and I think we managed to get Rugby Park out of the system today. I think we can see now that these players are all coming onto a game, are starting to find their rhythm. They're starting to find their feet at Ibrox, and the old dogs of war that we've got in defence are definitely looking a lot safer. And yeah, I was really chuffed with the defence. Jack Butland, Kenny Miller said on Sky Commentary today that Jack Butland did a bit of a total flap from a corner or a free kick for Ross County right at the end of the game. He came out and he just totally missed the ball, but we still managed to clear it anyway. And Kenny Miller said that was the first mistake he'd made in his Rangers career. Sorry, Kenny, it isn't he? Because Jack Butland made exactly the same mistake at exactly the same time of the game last week against Morton at Ibrox. So we know that Jack Butland has got a complete flap in him at the end of every game. But I think that's something that the rest of the defence combined, along with Butland's overall display, will manage to compensate for as we go forward. The goals, again, if you want to complain, the sources of the goals aren't good enough for you because Kamar Roof's always going to be injured, and James Tavernier, well, half the Rangers support just seems to despise the guy, just doesn't like him at all. But no, it was absolutely fantastic. listen, I'm going to go off on one here. I'm going off on one anyway, but I'm going to say, I'm sorry if you can only hear this pod rather than see it, but what I'm doing right now, I'm holding up a replica West Germany top, and it's Gerd Müller, replica number 13 in the back. Is a replica of his top, the top that he wore in the 1970, for most of the 1970 World Cup finals in Mexico, where he finished top scorer with 10 goals, the last man to score double figures in a World Cup finals. This is the Gerd Müller story. That's a video. It's in German. I don't speak German, but I need to know about Gerd Müller. It's a book in German, Gerd Müller, and they're listing all his goals and all that kind of thing. And here's a framed photograph that my sister got me, and that's Gerd Müller in Franz Beckenbauer training session, Hyde Park, ahead of their 1972 quarter-final first leg against England in the European Championships, in which Gerd Müller scored the winner. And up here, I've got a postcard of Germany shortly after they'd won the 1974 World Cup, and Gerd Müller, who scored the winner in that game, that's him just there. And that writing, you can maybe see on his shoulder, almost imperceptible. That writing says Gerd Müller, and it's written by Gerd Müller. He's the only man I've ever tracked down, I've ever hunted down for an autograph. He stopped playing football before I can really remember football. He died a couple of years ago, Gerd Müller. I spent my entire adult life tracking down every one of his goals on YouTube. I've got reference books behind me that list his goals in the Bundesliga. I'm trying to find all them on YouTube so I can say I've seen all of his goals. All this, for what reason, on a Rangers podcast? To tell you that if I know anything about football, it's I know a world-class striker when I see one. And the only difference between Kemar Roofe and Gerd Müller is that Kemar Roofe's injured all the time, and Gerd Müller wasn't. Gerd Müller's the greatest striker of all time. A lot of his records have been broken now, but he really was the greatest striker that ever existed. And so many of his goals just came from total knowledge, knowing where the ball was going to go, getting in amongst the bodies, anticipating in a crowded box. And this is in the days, Gerd Müller's playing the days where, centre-halves allowed to play keepy up with you. The referees weren't looking after strikers at all, and he just didn't mind doing whatever needed doing. He'd score for 2 yards out, a yard out, a millimetre out, but he was in there making the difference that got the ball past the goalkeeper. Borna Barisic puts on a cross in the 20th minute. At a time you're thinking, we could do with scoring now. And he misses out all the heifer lumps in the 6-yard box, and just at the edge of the 6-yard box on the far side, Kemar Roofe has got a Ross County player, I don't know who it is, man, I don't know, he's on top of him anyway. Roofe's behind him, this guy's blocking him off, and Roofe leans round him, kind of holds off on one side, leans round the guy on one side to see the ball coming, and as he's falling backwards, volleys the ball with his right foot round the other side of this Ross County player, right into the bottom corner. It's a magical goal. And what I'm saying about Dingwall, the whole aesthetic when you're watching it on television, at first I didn't actually know what happened. Ball's in the back of the net, that'll do. Was it some mad deflection? No, when I watched it back, it's just world-class striking. Just utter nous. A guy who's born to score goals. Kemar Roofe, absolutely sensational. If he was to miraculously be fit this season, we're winning the league. And there's, as I've always said, if he'd been fitter for 1 minute longer in 2022, we'd have won the Europa League as well. Absolutely fantastic. And just when Ross County are trying to come to terms with that, James Tavernier, the thing he gets slagged most for, not being able to defend, well, he takes the ball off an opposition player. He does defending. He does major defending. Brilliant reading of the game by Tav. Totally anticipates what Ross County are about to do and breaks it down, does his job. I don't have a problem with a goal-scoring fullback. We know there's always been goal-scoring fullbacks. Stuart Weir was talking about that very eloquently in one of the preview pods last Friday on Gersnet. But a lot of people seem to think that that's why Tav can't defend. I don't really care. As long as he's doing things like this, he can defend it. It's a misunderstanding of modern football. It's like saying Jack Butland's a great goalie but doesn't score enough goals. No, just the way the team is set up, the gamble that is Rangers these days is that Tav pushes forward. He's done the bit of defending there fantastically, like a captain, like a leader, and then he pushes forward and he starts getting that classic Tav slalom thing going. He starts the shimmy, the shoulders are dipping, the hips are swinging. It's the sachet my father wore, and then he hits what is basically a free kick while moving. He hits a shot into the top corner that most players would struggle from a dead ball situation. Most players would struggle to execute from a free kick, and Tav does it while he's moving. He gets towards the edge of the Ross County box, slightly to the right-hand side, and he hits this thing so far in the air that their goalie, who's covering himself, that the goalie's not to blame in any way. Laidlaw, the fellow, the Ross County goalie, he's going to back him up slightly, but he just starts diving in the hope that thing's going to go over. And it is going over until it realises it's safely past the goalkeeper and it just viciously dips down into that top corner of the net. 2-0, and that was game done. An absolutely sensational goal from your captain and my captain, the legend it is, James Tavernier. I was hoping we were going to get that third goal, get Cantwell off at half time. I was obsessed with getting Cantwell off. He seems to be the key for me. But at the second half, I thought Cantwell had been booked. He wasn't. I don't think he was anyway. But it just started panicking me that it was actually going to end up being suspended for next Sunday, as well as knackered for this coming Wednesday. But eventually, we brought him off. I think Ross County, as I say, they had a chance for Jordan White early on. They started the second half really well. We didn't. Lammers completely out of the game by that point. Kamarev, obviously, his fitness is catching up with him. But the manager reacted, and just before the hour mark, he brings on Matondo and Sima. And yeah, Rabbi Matondo, that's another guy. You've got to think that the last time we played that game where I'm talking about John Lundstrom scored the only goal of the game back at Christmas time up in Dingwall. Rabbi Matondo that day, we're trying to finish off the game that night. It was a nighttime game. He kept getting put, he came on as a sub, and he kept getting put through on goals, and he had the pace, he had the timing to beat the offside trap. He knew where he was supposed to be, and as I say, he had the pace to burn, but he just, when it came to the old foot touching the ball stuff, he wasn't very good. And we thought he was going to be leaving Ibrox at that point. And this pre-season, even I thought he was going to be leaving Ibrox because he just didn't look up to it at all. The manager said during the week that he'd had an ankle knock, that he'd been keeping quiet, and the past few games he certainly has looked like a man who's been totally refreshed. Something to prove as well. He didn't properly square the ball or shoot on goals. The chance he had late on, and Sima was giving him a bollock, and I like to see that the new players kind of giving their older teammates, their more experienced teammates, a bit of a bollocking, and everybody gets on. That's how you unite as a team. But he was great. Rabbi Matondo is definitely going to be a proper player for us going forward, and I'm so happy to see him doing so well these days, and I hope he continues in that vein. It's 3 points, folks. That was the main thing, was to get the 3 points, not to get any injuries, not to get any suspensions. Connor Goldson took a bit of a knock towards the end, so I'm hoping that was just one of these things he's walked off. We don't hear about anything between now and nipping off to North Brabant during the week, and then we've got this game against the Never Stop Celtic next Sunday, so it's all to play for. Today's events will be reviewed much more eloquently and in much more detail than I could manage by John, Stuart and Mark tomorrow on the Gersnet main flagship show, 9:30 live on YouTube. And yeah, thanks very much for joining us, folks, and enjoy the rest of your Saturday night.